uh, and anyway, in the when the 2008 economic crash happened, I uh, had trouble making ends meet, and I finally started tapping into that nest egg that I'd put away 20 years earlier. And the end result was that um, I decided rather than slowly eating away at that, that I'd put all my eggs in one basket, as Tom Ellis and uh, another number of people I had known had done. And I decided to try and build the Ardell with rapidly decreasing funds, but I had the shipyard. And uh, when I started the Ardell, I thought I was building a vessel for myself and my family to try and make a living with. Um, uh, and I hope that, as folks had done with other boats that I built, they'd try and help me out. And as I got further into the project, the number of people that came to help me out and offered help and their assistance um, grew to a level that I couldn't have imagined. And as I got going, I started to continue on, really as much not to let those people down as for my own needs. Uh, and then as I got further into the project, what I realized was that, all the help I was getting was not really about me. Um, that the shipbuilding industry was a defining industry of our area and of our culture in this town, and that the people that were helping me were not helping me personally, but they were trying to help to keep the town and the and our area's identity alive, and help to pass on our shared heritage. People say that I'm descendant of shipbuilders, but many people in this area are descended from shipbuilders, and even those that aren't are connected to the industry in one way or another, and they wanted to pass that shared heritage and that culture on to the next generation. And I was honored to be the person who was trying hardest to do that. And um, anyway, when I was building the Ardell, the Chamber of Commerce offered me the Small Businessman of the Year award, and I was rather shocked. I told them, I said, I haven't had a customer in 5 years. How can you give me that award? And the answer was that every time I built a boat, the town of Essex, every business in the town of Essex did better than on years when I wasn't building a boat. Um, and when I finished the Ardell, I hoped it wouldn't be my last vessel, and I hoped that I could give back, not only through sailing the Ardell and doing the best I could with it, but by repeating the same uh, uh, process in building another boat. And at the time, for a few years, I thought about building a mackerel fishing schooner, and I wanted to build the biggest 65-foot clipper style mackerel fishing schooner I could. It was a type mackerel fishing um, is a type of fishing that my mother's family, was deeply involved in, and I thought it was an area of the fishery that was underrepresented in Gloucester, and I thought we should have a mackerel schooner. And then I was reading some advertisements in a magazine about schooners. My friend Mike Rutstein, who owns the Fame, publishes, called Marlin Spike Magazine, and in the back of Marlin Spike Magazine, it said Sylvina W. Beal for sale, and I knew her. And but the funny thing in the ad is it said it was the oldest knockabout fishing schooner in North America. And I went to the schooner meeting and I told a few people that not to tell anyone this, but that I was considering taking the Beal on. And wouldn't it be interesting if people could go down the dock at Maritime Gloucester and see the oldest knockabouts fishing schooner and then see the second oldest one? Anyway, it was really just a kind of a joke. And I happened to call my friend Maynard Bray about the story, and he sent me this photo, which you can see of the Beal sitting at the dock with a dory alongside, gear
Who's helping her?
with heavy, her heavy rub strakes designed for catching, for laying alongside other boats and weirs, and I just fell in love with the boat. Talked to Mary Kay about it, and she we went up to look at the boat, and it was all over. And luckily, other people have feel this boat is worth saving, and so we wrote a preservation plan, and accordance with the Secretary of the Interior standards of ship preservation projects, and started the process of bringing the boat back to Essex and taking her on. The current owner was incredibly helpful, or the owner at the time was incredibly helpful, and others felt it was a good idea, and people chipped in to help us move it, and Maritime Gloucester allowed us to haul it on their railway and do some work that was a lot easier done on their railway than in our creek, and we brought it back to Essex after a year, and it's been quite a whirlwind, but we're moving ahead with this project, and people have not only donated time and effort, but also material and money. And the Mass Cultural Council gave me a $15,000 artist grant, which we're using towards it. And of course, we've got this apprenticeship grant, and a number of friends and family and private individuals have donated, and we have received more than 20% of the money we need for this project, and we've purchased all of the bronze. And not only do we have all the bronze, but we have all the a great deal of the timber. Mayor Tree Service has helped us with other boats, and Doug's Tree Service up in
New Hampshire.
up north has helped us out a lot, and Iron Tree Service has been incredibly generous with helping to give us material that they're taking down for land clearing jobs and tree work, and helping us to turn it into a boat. And anyway, but the whole idea of it was really to keep the shipbuilding traditions going on here in Essex, and this artist grant, which we've received, is a great honor. But what I see it as is an unbelievable opportunity to pass on what I know to someone else, and it's the third apprenticeship grant that I've had, and Randy.
This is Katie, who's now part of our board.
Yeah, Randy got the first one, and my son Alden worked with me on the second one, and that allowed me to work with him in a way that I hadn't before, and allowed him to learn things about the shipbuilding industry that otherwise he would have not known, and as importantly allowed the two of us working together to preserve the the first boat my dad built. And while we were doing that, Grant, KD, was working with me on the Ardell and has now got her captain's license and is interested in sailing, wouldn't stay away. And so this grant is an opportunity for Katie and I to work together, and for me to pass on the skill to somebody who's not only interested but outrageously passionate and incredibly dedicated. And it's an honor to work with her. And hope you enjoy the rest of her presentation.
Okay, so sorry about that. Most of you probably already know me. It's a small group tonight, mostly locals. I recognize most of the names. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Katie. I got wrapped up in all this madness. Probably it was like 2012 to 2013. Harold built the Ardell and he brought it in to partner with Maritime Gloucester. And at that point, I was working as an educator at Maritime Gloucester and also at the front desk and selling Harold's tickets. And I was first invited on the boat to learn how to teach on board. So I was already teaching in the classroom and in the aquarium. And they said, we have some onboard programs we want to do. You need to learn how to operate this vessel safely. So, excuse me, so we can bring kids on board. And I fell in love with it. Harold told me jump on anytime, and I did. I just kept jumping on that boat and asking what was going on, following his son Alden around, being like, what does this do? What does that do? And I really got into it. And so when there was a need for crew, naturally Harold just grabbed me out of the store and I started working on the boat. And so since then, I've passed the test and got my 50-ton captain's license. I'm still working on the sail endorsement bit, kind of dragging my feet on that through COVID. But I really got into the sailing and the culture, and I'd never been exposed to this world before. I didn't know what it was about. I lived in Gloucester, so I was connected to the sea. I had a passion for all of our local culture in Gloucester around the fishing and the access to the ocean, but I didn't really know anything about shipbuilding or sailing. So I started learning under Harold at that point, and he's really been teaching me ever since. So on the Ardell, I got to know a lot of like the maintenance of a boat. So, we had to do up rig and down rig. So I got to learn the lines and the sails. We had to paint every year. So I got pretty good at painting. And I really did a lot of the upkeep, but it wasn't until Harold got the apprenticeship grant with Alden that I was introduced to boat building. So when Alden was rebuilding the Maria, I did just keep showing up. I was there every minute I could be. And I just started my big grown-up job at the Gloucester Biotechnology Academy. So I was teaching laboratory technician techniques to kids or young adults at that point. But after work every day, I was over in the barn with Alden on the weekends. And I was there. There's not a whole ton of pictures of the process because it was me and Alden in the barn figuring it out for a lot of it. And then it was an amazing feeling to see that boat completed and launched. So that's actually me in a top hat smashing the bottle of champagne across the bow. And everybody loves a good splashdown video. So this is the launch of the Maria. And it was really here where I started, like, I could feel that the community. This was Bob Bisnick took this video.
Yay, Bob.
Yay, Bob. Thanks, Bob. So at this point, like the feeling in the town of Essex when a ship hits the water, it's electric. Like everyone's in it. It's beautiful. It's fun. And you're carrying on what is part of the fabric of this town. You feel like you make the ghosts happy. So that really got me into the idea of shipbuilding and what it was all about. And then, oh, I'm having trouble flipping my script. There we go. Then Harold decided to get the Beal. And so this is a picture. Where'd you get this one, Harold?
That's from Jeff Jones, who was a former owner of the Beal. And it's actually the Helen McCall, but it's a sister. And that's what she looked like when she was new. And she'll look very similar to that when we're through.
So
handsome boat.
So Harold fell in love with this boat. He started it off as this joke, and we were all laughing about it, like, oh, haha, we're gonna get this boat, and then we went to go get it. So at that point, I was still working my regular grown-up job, but I was around for every bit I was. I was still sailing with Harold on nights and weekends and any time off that I had on the Ardell. So when the opportunity came around to go up and get the Beal, I couldn't go for the trip down, but I drove up. And so we loaded Chucky's truck up with everything we could possibly think of. There's the dory. The dory is full of stuff, life jackets, survival suits, whatever. We had this truck bogged down and we brought it up to Maine and we built the bunks on the boat. I stayed the night and then I drove the truck home in the morning and went to work.
Yeah, no one with minor children and no one under 18 was allowed on the trip.
Yeah, so
it was we were ready to step off at any given moment. It was an interesting trip.
Yeah, our friends Alex and Zach, they got to make the trip down, but I couldn't make it. But when the boat got to Gloucester and it got on the dock at Maritime Gloucester, I was back there every chance that I had, humping lead out of the bilge. We scrubbed that boat clean, every inch of it, and started getting it ready to really rehabilitate. You had to clean it out and see what was there. And so then here's the Beal again up on the dock, or excuse me, the railway at Maritime Gloucester. And then after she made it safely home to the creek, you can see I was still wearing my business clothes there. I took an extended lunch break so I could help get the Beal out of the water. And then in March of 2020, we applied for the Massachusetts Cultural Council Traditional Arts Apprenticeship Grant. We started this process right before all the COVID madness started to happen. And at that point, we didn't know what was going to go on. So we did it hopefully, and we worked really hard on that grant. And then the virus hit and everything kind of shut down. We finished the grant through the beginning of the virus, really still not thinking that it would get much worse for much longer. But because everything kind of got put on hold, the grant awarding got put on hold. So we were told that everything was being postponed. So at that point, Harold just kept working. So Harold started drawing the lines.
And just a quick note on the Beal and its history. The vessel is a fishing schooner she was built in 1911 by Frank C. Adams, who was renowned shipbuilder in East Boothbay, Maine. And the way I kind of got to know her was that um, between 2008 and 2019, I was the supervisor in construction, and or I was the not the supervisor of construction, but I was the owner's representative, and the and I did a lot of design work and engineering work and planning for the schooner Ernestina Morrissey, which was an Essex-built schooner from 1894 that was rebuilt in Boothbay Harbor Shipyard um, by a fantastic crew of shipwrights. David Short was a master shipwright, and Eric Graves was yard manager, and the shipyard did an amazing job. And through that long time period, traveling back and forth to Booth Bay, I got to befriend a number of people in the community and learn about shipbuilding in Booth Bay, which paralleled Essex. And in 1911, I made the trip back and forth many times under sail in the Ardell, and I could leave Gloucester, which was an easy exit, and approach Booth Bay, which is an easy entry, and vice versa. And in 16 hours with a good breeze, I could be back and forth between the two places. If you were walking or taking a horse, it would take days and days and days to make that trip. The fastest run I heard, I think, was the Puritan. She did it in about 4 or 6 hours from Gloucester. So these communities, although Booth Bay seems a long way for us, during the days of sail, it was as easy to get to Booth Bay as it was to get from Essex to Gloucester. And really almost the distance was, in terms of time and energy, about the same. And it was a lot easier approach than trying to get up the Essex River. And the families were connected. There were Adams in 1911 building ships in Essex. There were Frank Adams built it. There were Beals. The Beals were the builders of the boat, are the ones that had it built, who had it built from Beals Island in Maine. They were fishing out of Gloucester, and there were Burnhams building boats in East Booth Bay, Maine. And so the ties of the culture really were more than similar; they were the same, and that's those ties are something we want to continue forward. And in the Beals rehabilitation, we want to keep those connected, the communities connected, and keep the ties going. And anyway, this is her lines plan, and you can, and that's her sail plan right there. And you can keep going. We can discuss that too much. This is the construction, typical of not only a East Booth Bay schooner, but an Essex schooner. They're built the same, basically. And this is her lower structure. And all of these plans last year I worked on with the Coast Guard, and we received approval for the structure.
So Harold was doing this without me because we hadn't heard about the grant yet. We didn't go ahead with all of that, and my plans changed. I had intended to go back to school, and that wasn't possible anymore. So Harold went out cutting wood.
That's the stern post.
So we started to get some good pieces out, and then I also I spent most of the past year cutting wood. So this is what I was doing out on a painter farm at Andy Spinney's place in Essex. So it was an interesting year for all of us, and we had to make some changes. So then in January, we were awarded the grant, which was great news. And we're really excited to get ahead on it. So we decided to jump right in. But But the whole beginning of the grant, we had planned on drawing out the lines and doing the design work for the Beal. But Harold had already done that. So we decided that the best way for me to learn was to jump in and design my own boat. Luckily, I already had a boat in mind. So every crew that Harold has come on the Ardell, he tells them to go home and watch Captain's Courageous. So of course I went home and watched Captain's Courageous, and I read the book, and then I was stumbling through, my dad's old library, and I found this other book that was about the writing of Captain's Courageous. And I read that, and in that book, I found reference to Rudyard Kipling's First Journey to Gloucester. And on Rudyard Kipling's First Journey to Gloucester, he took a ride from T Wharf in Boston into Gloucester on a sloop boat called the Venus. And the Venus was captained by John T. Dench. Well, I'm Catherine Dench. So I was like, hey, that's my boat. I want that. So I Googled it, and for the longest time, the only thing I could find was this one picture. So this is somewhere around midships, a little bit forward, and it's right on the side. You can't tell that much. This is from NOAA Fisheries. They were doing an ecological study. So it says Gloucester Station, shipping cod on the sloop Venus. And that's all I found for the longest time. And then I kept looking, and I found different lists of vessels, and I would always find Venus, sloop, and I'd find the lines, and over to the side it would say Captain John T. Dench. So it was on several of these lists. It either listed John Dench, or sometimes it listed Frank Foster as the builder. There was like another reference somewhere to the Thomas Irving Yard, and Harold actually told me, and then I found it also later in the Chronicle of Yankee Endeavor, that Dana Story's book there, that at that time in Gloucester, they were subcontracting work out to A.D. Story. So it's very likely that A.D. Story of Essex actually built that boat. So then I also, over the quarantine period, I sent an email out to the Cape Ann Museum. They provided me with this photo, which was super exciting because now I have a picture of it. I have a picture of my boat. And so then we have our boat, and what do we do? How do you start building a boat? So Harold says the first thing you do if you want to build a boat is you plan. So like a preservation plan would be for rehabilitation, a business plan is crucial in the construction of a new boat, because you can have a boat, but what are you going to do with it once you get it? You build it, you got to do something with it. So you have to figure out how you're going to make it and how you're going to continue to maintain it. So I wrote my first business plan. Harold gave me an example of one of his. I read a lot of different resources, and I came up with something rough.
And we stole a few from people who hired me.
Yeah, we might have stolen some really great advice. So now that I have my plans, it was time to figure out how to draw it. So I went about this a backwards way, and I kind of did it on purpose because I wanted to see if I could get the lines drawing out of my head based off the knowledge I already had. So we had like a good starting point. So I had this picture and a little bit of book reference, and I drew a boat. How is my boat, Harold?
We could sail it anywhere.
But it was ugly.
Well, it was the first attempt. And it was, when Katie finished it, I said, now you've drawn more boats than most people ever will. and I also told her that we could easily sail that boat across the ocean, and we could build it because really the boat is only a part of what it takes. You have to be a good seaman, and you have to understand what you can do and what you can't do. And she got it that far, which was, I think, excellent that she attempted it.
So Harold, really quick after I attempted this, pulled out that he had already seen in a book somewhere. Which book was this?
That was Chappelle's American Sailing Craft. It was one of the early Chappelle books, and they had several lines of Gloucester sloop boats that my father had thought about building and looked at, and I think he made a model of that boat at one point. So yeah, so we gave that to Katie as maybe a little more reference than she had.
So this is actually the sloop Vesta. So it was built in the same time period in the same yard as the Venus was. And it's pretty safe to assume that they used the same basic designs for
Definitely
a lot of the boats at that time. So I worked with Harold. We blew that plan up from the book and made templates to make models. So we blew it up and we glued it onto plywood and we cut it out. So then we started our model making. So Harold kind of showed me what to do. I'd carved models in the past, only 2 ever, and they were bad, and took me months. So there's Harold showing me, and let's get it. Oh, sorry. There we go. There's my first model, and I got a lot faster at it. Not just in the time lapse, but I think start to finish, this was, a day to rough it out and then another day to sand it. And
no, it wasn't a day. I showed you how to do it in about 10 minutes, and I came out a half an hour later and you were done.
Okay. Yeah, but that was I
thought it was an excellent piece of work.
I think the prep took me at least a day, though, with the cutting and
It always takes a lot of time to prepare to cut it.
But the actual carving, yeah, it took an incredible amount of time, shorter than it did the first time. So there's me carving, and that's the finished model. So that's of those lines from Sloop Vesta, and that's right here we have hanging out with us. So our very first Venus. So now I have that boat, and I have my model, but do the lines of that model actually fit my business plan? Is that boat going to work for what I want to do with it? And the answer was no. Those classic fishing boats were low, and there wasn't a lot of room inside. They weren't made for passengers, and they weren't made really for safety. So
they could carry fish, though.
Yes.
So if you want to be a fish, that would be a great boat to sail on.
But I didn't want to just carry fish. I wanted to carry some people too. So we started working and talking about how you wrap the lines of your boat around your business plan. And you alter your design enough to make it safe and comfortable for passengers. So this is roughed out, and then I carved another model. So I altered my boat. I added some freeboard, so that way you could stand up down below, because I really want to have passengers overnight that can be inside of the boat. And we got our second model carved and started going to our lines. Here's a little video explaining how we get from here to there. So the big question is how we go from this to a drawing like this.
42 minutes. Oh, okay.
We're actually going to trace this right under our paper. So I'm gonna line up my center line. I'm gonna line up my water line. Here you can see it's marked by this piece of mahogany. And I'm gonna line it all up so it's good. And then I'm gonna take my pencil and I'm just gonna trace it. That one's so good. There we have the profile view of our boat. Now, this is made in sections by water lines. We actually go ahead and take this apart. We can trace out our water lines too. Line everything up, nice and sweet. Just like that. I'll take out these other screws and trace my other lifts. So this is the second drawing I worked on. Harold really walked me through the first one and showed me what to do. So this is my first shot at doing it alone that you're seeing. So then that's the profile view. And I'm going to show you the half breadth view here, how we get that. So if we're going to trace out our half breadth plan, we're going to do it largely the same way. So I'm going to line up my center line. I'm going to start here. Going from the inside out here. Line up my next piece. Sure it's all good and straight. You get the idea. And then the next technique is something that I really thought was witchcraft the first time I saw Harold do it. I was like, I have no idea how to do this. That looks crazy. And there's probably way more math involved than I actually needed to know to do it. To physically do it, you can do it this way. I'm sure a computer program could do it with math, but it's figuring out the okay. Now I'm going to show you the tricky part. That's going to be the station view. So we did our profile view and our half breadth view. And now we're going to do the station view, which is this one right here. So this is the front half of the ship, and this is the back half of the ship. I'm just going to show you one station. You can see what it's like. So I've laid out all these red lines here. They're station lines. I picked stations about 6 feet apart on my 3/8 scale. And those lines can get further apart or closer together. You just have to know how far apart they are. And that gives you, the closer together they are, the more of a view of the boat it gives you. But if I want to start my station plan here, I'm gonna start to move my lines around from these two plans onto this middle view. So I have a baseline down here that I wrote, and that's just a line for reference. So I'm gonna line up with my baseline. So I know that's the bottom. And then I'm gonna mark out different places along my line. So I'm gonna draw out our center line first because it's one of the more broad areas of the ship, so you'll get an idea of the shape of the boat if you were looking at it head on. So lining that up, I'm gonna mark where my rabbit is. Then I'm gonna mark -4, -1, my water line, and my shear or deck line. Okay. For those of you that don't know, you're not familiar, so rabbit is where the boat meets the keel. It's also used to refer to like a place where they carved out, so they rabbited the joints together so you could slide something in there. So from these lines I just pulled from right here, I gave myself another arbitrary just reference line, and I'm gonna mark out where my rabbit is, where -4 water line is, that's that one, -1 water line, my load water line, and then my shear or deck, so the top of the boat. So we have those marks. Now we have to relate this plan to this plan as well. I'm gonna flip over my scrap of paper and going from my center line, I'm gonna mark out this is -4 water line. Sure, I'm good in square. Mark out -1 water line, mark out the load water line, and mark out the shear or the deck. Now this was -4, -1, load, and shear. So this is kind of cool. If I take these and line them up here, I can start making marks. So there's from the middle, there's -4, -1, my load, and my shear. So now I just have to connect the dots. So we have all these tools to help us. So we're gonna try to make a nice rounded boat shape here.
Yeah, he was in here. I thought he was still here, but it doesn't appear to be.
And there we go. So that is the beginning of our station view. Could do the same thing over and over again and then connect the dots so it looks more like this. So that's a simplified version of how we do the adaptation from a model to lines on paper. So here's just a couple shots of, so this is my finished model, and this is my first set of lines that Harold really helped me a lot with. You can see just our workspace and how it is. But that wasn't the whole story. So this apprenticeship is, it's evolving. It's me learning what Harold does, and trying to figure out how in the world to do that at all without him, which is a big task. So part of that is also looking at other boats. So this is our friend Cyrus's boat. Next to it's actually our friend Zach's boat, and Cyrus had a leaking problem in the fall, little sinking problem. So it's hauled out at Greens Point Boat Yard, which is his dad's yard, and he asked us to come over and give him a hand. So that
A bunch of
was
wood.
and a bunch of wood. So that was an exercise in looking at problems that boats have in their designs, like flaws and creative ways to fix them, as well as steam bending and bending in new ribs. We also went and we looked at the Ada K. Damon over at the Crane Estate, and you really get a lot of information about how to build a new boat off of the old boats. And somewhere around that time, Harold suggested that I start walking around with a tape measure. And so I've been doing some contract work for the Essex Shipbuilding Museum. I'm writing them a couple of lessons and for the local elementary schools. And while I'm doing that, I'm spending a lot of time on their site and looking a lot at the Evelina Goulart. So I have my little tape measure I bring over, and I'm trying like hell to remember how thick the planks are, how wide the planks are, to get an idea of the spacing between the ribs and all of the things that the boat builders of the past had done, because that gives us an idea of what's worked. And all the lines are a particular designer's, it's their set of rules. So I have to, if I want to become a boat builder, develop my own set of rules based off of all of this information. Go ahead.
You don't have to play that. We'll skip
Yeah,
that.
yeah, we're gonna
We're getting crunched for time.
yeah, we're gonna stop here for questions. So if you guys have any questions, I'm gonna stop this screen share. I'm pretty new to the Zoom thing, so I guess if you have a question, just unmute yourself and yell it out.
Is anybody struggling?
I can't tell if anybody's.
Anyone have any questions? Is it that easy, really?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Steve Wedlock. I'm Ben's dad. Harold, you used to work over there a little bit for you.
Oh, a lot, yeah.
And I'm just back from Spain. I retired when Ben took over my business, and I'm living over in Spain now. But Kim just called me with a quick note that this was on tonight, so I wanted to listen to it
Well,
and see what you guys were up to now.
thanks for.
And this is all on the Sylvina Beal.
Yeah, we're still working on the Sylvina Beal. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, remember that Jeff Jones had it, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I ran into him a couple of times when I was up in Mystic doing surveys on the Mystic. And
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing when you have a boat like the Beal. You know, we don't own it; it owns us. We're the stewards of a piece of history, and it's our job to take care of it and hopefully leave it in better shape than it came to us. And
that's wonderful.
and
It's really great to see.
And Jeff is one of the many people in the Beal's history that definitely did that. It's amazing that it's still around after 100.
Yeah, it is. The workmanship and stuff is just so amazing.
Oh, she's an incredible boat, and we hope that we can do her justice.
Sounds good. Trying to use local wood on her, or
yeah, it'll be, the wood is coming from local landscape and tree companies so far. Mayor Tree Service and Iron Tree Service and Doug's Tree Service have all contributed wood. We've got more than half of it, I would say, on site,
Uh-huh.
and mostly cut up, and log trucks are due in any minute. So
Sounds good. What are you looking at? Maybe a couple year project here
um, we like to build a boat in a winter. Life can change an awful
or?
lot
Uh-huh.
here, but
That'd be nice.
we're going to start it in September and try for next spring. But with the COVID, we decided the reason to do this is to bring the town together and people together and
Hmm.
make the most of it for everybody. And we can't do that during the COVID time. So to give
Yeah.
everybody another year to plan, we're going to do it a year from September. But that also gives us not a year to sleep, but a year to make the, prepare and plan
Uh-huh.
and gear up for the project that much better. And I think it's going to take about all we can give it. Really, it's
Sounds good.
it's an enormous. And maybe for this model of the Beal behind me, and
Uh-huh.
here's the model of the. This is the model of the Thomas Lannon, and you can see she's tiny in comparison. And,
Yeah, real different too in terms of
and the Lannon about killed me, so we'll see what happens.
Don't tell Tom that.
Yeah. So,
Sounds good. Well, it's good hearing from you and see what you guys are up to.
yeah, I think we're winding down, but I want to say what a great job I feel Katie did with this, and you're seeing her on the learning curve. She's just starting, and when you dive into this, the learning curve is incredibly steep, and I think it'll be very entertaining to see how these talks go in the next couple of years. But
Mhm.
I believe you'll get to see somebody develop in a way that'll make us all proud. And
Absolutely.
That's the rumor I heard too.
so,
Absolutely. Katie, you are definitely an inspiration to all of us. And Harold, you are by far an amazing person. And I am very proud of both of you. And this was great. I'm really happy I did this.
well, I'm
Thanks.
glad
Yeah, I hope
everybody
you
enjoyed it.
come back next month. We're gonna do this monthly, which is freaking terrifying. but we're gonna do it, and we got a lot of work to do. So it's gonna be interesting to see how we keep this going.
And you were both very hardworking people and very, very, very strong minded. So keep up the good work. I can't wait.
Thanks.
Thank you all for watching. It's a great
Take care.
pleasure, and thanks to the Essex Shipbuilding Museum for hosting this.
Yep. Thank you to the Essex Shipbuilding Museum for hosting
And
us.
Mass Cultural.
And Massachusetts Cultural Council for giving us the grant. We're very grateful. We're grateful to all of our friends and helpers and all of you guys for coming in and listening to us blather on for a little while.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys.
Onward.